for inviting me down, because we do enjoy coming out and talking to people and letting them know what some of our experiences are and what we've actually experienced here in Indiana. And if you look around the room here, for something that doesn't exist, that people say we're crazy for, that ridicule you for it, quite a few people here. You know what I mean? And you'll find out if you've had, who's had the experience? Cool, so we got a couple here that's really had experience. And you'll find out once that's the case, things kind of change. You know, it's a little bit different. But let me see. This organization itself was established back in 2005, so we've been around for a few years. Our Facebook is one thing. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you're on our Facebook group, hey, that's cool. We love it. We appreciate it. But the Facebook's one thing, because what the core group does is nothing. Facebook, I just let. It's an animal on its own. To be honest with you, it's just an animal on its own, and sometimes it's kind of vicious. Right now, it's being vicious because the original guy that created it, Steve Abney. If you've been on there, Steve Abney's been posting all kind of stuff. Well, he's getting blasted left and right. People are picking him apart, something fierce. And I understand with some of the stuff that he says. I thought the same thing. When I first met the man and I first started, I shook my head. I shook my head and said, what is this guy talking about? And if you happen to read my book, that's what I'll tell you. That's what that book's about. That book is about taking the organization over from Steve Abney in 2014 when I didn't think there was a Bigfoot in Indiana. I thought there ain't no way. Oregon, out in Washington, out west, out in some deep forest, out in some really deep forest. Yeah, Indiana, there isn't any woods deep enough in Indiana for even. I find it funny when someone says they're lost in Indiana. Usually you can stop and go, yeah, I hear the road. You know what I mean? You walk to the top, like everybody, they'll say people get lost in the Morgan Monroe Forest where we live at. And I'm like, seriously? All you gotta do is walk top of the ridge and walk Far Road out. Otherwise, if you stop, you can hear the traffic. I mean, how do you get lost? So when someone tells me, when someone told me there was a Bigfoot there, I'm like, there's no way. Finding Bigfoot went there, the show went there, I shook my head. I went, no. But I went out with Steve, and the first day we go out, he finds a print. And it would be the same thing if I took you out today and we found a print, you're going to say the same thing I said that day. He brought me here. How do I know that's not planted? I mean, that's just the way it is. We had in Yellowwood at one of our outings, we had an independent film crew from Indianapolis with us. They wanted to come along and film us, along with 3 teenage girls that called themselves the Myth Breakers that wanted to come and break our myth. I'm like, okay, fine with me, I don't care. Well, we had a really good, extraordinary night. I mean, 2 different areas at the same time, we was having all kind of experiences. The one that we was in, we wasn't there 10 minutes. 5, I don't know how long we was there, maybe 10 minutes. And I hear something drop on a car. I hear what I think is a nut. This is in the fall. I'm thinking a hickory nut or something fell on the car because I heard it hit. So I'm like, we must be under some trees. So I kind of walked down. These teenage girls had parked their car down the farthest end of this parking spot. So their car was the closest into the woods. So I'm walking down there and I'm kind of glancing around and I'm looking at what kind of tree we're under, saying, well, you know, what dropped on it. There's a big handprint right on top of the hood of their car. That quick, within 10 minutes of being in this spot, this thing put a big handprint on top of that car. Well, this kind of freaked those girls out, and then right after that, someone actually seen something moving through the woods beside us. This is pretty interesting right there, within minutes of being there. Well, while that was going on, at another location, I don't know, 2-3 mile,
Probably.
as a crow flies, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit when you're driving it, but through the woods, it's maybe a mile or so, if that, mile and a
You're on
half.
top of the hill at one and then
And then
valley
down,
and then.
Yeah, valley and
the other.
another one. I mean, you're
And
not
they're-
that far apart. Spot. A couple was sitting in a Jeep. Didn't have the top on, doors was, you know, open Jeep. And this is all on recording. All you hear her say is, why is it always on my side? Then this thing comes out and runs around their Jeep and smacks the Jeep. And I still say today that Jim is the coolest guy there is. His wife is screaming, jumping on his lap, and he's going, don't worry, baby, I'll get you out of here. You know, just as calm as could be. And I'm going, man, you are the dude. You got this thing running around your Jeep, smacking it, and all you're doing is, don't worry, I'll get you out of here. So, they thought it was all set up. No, all of it. That's just set up. Now, the 3 teenage girls that was gonna break our myth, by the time we got back down there and talked to them about that one run around their Jeep, we was going to a different area, went back by the campground. I said, I'm gonna grab a bottle of water, then we're gonna go over to another spot. Turned around, it was gone. Now, their tent was set up, everything was set up for them to stay the whole night. And I turned around, their tent's gone, everything. They grabbed their shit, threw it in their car and left. And then when we asked them later, they said, oh, Mom said we ought to come home. Yeah, Mom said you ought to come home. We broke what you thought. You got this shit scared out of you, is what happened. But again, nothing really happened. I mean, they just come in close, that was it. So it was nothing really that big. But how many actual core members that we have, and what I mean by core members, this is the group that we go out with off and on all the time. There's a certain group that when we go out, and like Martin is really kind of one of our core group now. He's considered one of the core members. When Martin tells me something, I know it's the truth. I don't question what he's telling me, because I know him. I know that he's not saying something because he just wants some kind of attention. You know, what he's telling me is right. And we have that's what we kind of consider our core members, is once we get to know them, we get to trust somebody, and they're going out with us all the time. And they're telling us what's happening there. And that's the kind of the members that we really like to establish and really like to get. And then when we have our outings, that's who's coming to our outings and helping us put on the outings and doing things with us all the time. They're really the trusted members. That's what I'm saying. The Facebook is one thing, but to be what we consider a core member, you know, that's close-knit, you know.
Core
And that-
members more like family.
Yeah, that's that trusted circle level.
They're the ones that you call upon when you get a
Yeah,
report
and
away
they're
from
the
where we
ones-
are, you send somebody in the
Yeah,
core group that
because-
lives in that area.
Because it's like we live in Martinsville, which is central Indiana, just south of Indianapolis. I got a guy that's calling me one day and saying that he had throw something in his car. As he was driving, he seen it lean around a tree and throw a rock at his car. Well, I got him on the phone. I'm texting another guy, and I had him on site talking to this guy within 2 hours. Within 2 hours of him calling, I had someone on site down there with him to go out to his location.
It's over a 2-hour drive for us.
Yeah, that's over a 2 hour drive for me. I couldn't I couldn't take off right then and go down there, but I had someone else that was in that area that's part of our core members. And that's why I want core members all over the state, because I want to be able to call someone that I can trust and say, hey, I just got this, can you go check that out? Because that's one of my biggest things is, if you go on BFRO and you submit a report, someone might get back to you 2 or 3 years later. No, I don't like that idea. I want someone to get back to you right now, and I want to go out there and take the story that you've got and find, is there any evidence that we can find? Is there a print? Is there any type of tree breaks? Is there anything there that we can take that story now and turn it into something? Because other than that, it's just a story. And we hear them all the time. Everybody has stories. But
And
unless
not
you
that
can,
they're not true.
it's not that it's not true, but we don't have nothing to back it up. I like to be able to back it up with something and say, yeah, we went and checked that out. You know, it's like I had a lady that had them around her house, and she called me, and I went out there, and sure enough, there's the prints right off of her porch. You know, well, that went on for several years. You know, that's the kind of stuff that I want. I want to be able to go, yeah, we know that they're there. Everfed, that 16-inch print over there was, someone called me from Everfed.
Elberfeld.
Okay, whatever. Somewhere
That's
down
okay.
here in southern Indiana. But they called, we went down there, and we was able to find a print and back up that story. That's what we really like. Plus, it confirms to the person that's having it, hey, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. It helps in both cases. People don't realize that we do have a webpage too. It's IBROIndiana.com. And you can go there and you can submit reports, and you can look at some of the reports that's on there. You can go to any one of those. Oh, that doesn't look good. Move along here. You can go to any one of those, and it'll tell you how many reports we have in that county.
Yeah, like you click on the county.
You click on it, and it may say 3 reports, and then it'll tell you what year they are.
And it's a work in progress.
Yeah, and it's always a work in progress. The more reports we get, the more we can actually put on there. So, what do we look for when we go out? Like, if someone calls me and wants me to come and look at their area, some of the things that we're gonna look for is the tree breaks, the tree structures, and the tree beds. Well, everybody, that's all subject. Me and Martin have several arguments about tree structure, tree bends, you know. Me and him go back and forth all the time about it, you know. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good. It makes him have to think a little bit more before he tells me, but it's also making me look at a lot more, you know, going, damn him. You know, it works both ways, because we sure didn't see something stand out there and bend that tree. But when you find trees that's like this, and many hunters would walk by that and not think nothing about it. You may be walking down a trail and you may look at that and go, yeah, so some brush fell over. But if you just go over there and look and go, that tree's not from this area. I can't tell by that. There might have been something in here. One of those might have been a sycamore tree, I'm not for sure. But one of those trees was probably not from that location. It wasn't just pushed over. It wasn't just, that didn't have the root ball on it. That was broke off and brought into there. And you'll find some like this, and that's where you can see. There's no root ball. That didn't naturally just fall in place. It come from somewhere. Where did it come from?
And sometimes they're like woven in.
Yeah, and they're woven around. So that's what we're looking for. You're looking for things that just doesn't make sense, just doesn't look naturally that it could happen. If you can stand there and go, yep, that limb fell out of that tree, you know. There was a storm come through here a couple weeks ago. Yeah, there's shit blowed everywhere. Hey, I'll agree with you. I won't argue with you a bit. You can ask Martin. I'll argue that stuff all the time. And this is what we find with the tree break a lot. It'll be a 5-6 inch tree. 8 to 10 foot up in the air, it'll be snapped over and broke. Now this particular tree was still green. The leaves hadn't even started turning on this tree yet, where it had been broke off. They were still just like it had just been done the night before or something. There was no storms went through there. This was in a camping spot that we were there all the time. We're in that location all the time, and at the time I didn't live very far from there at all. And I can tell you, well, no, there wasn't no storms come through here in the last week. Besides that, all the trees above it, this is a small tree compared to the rest of the trees around it. So if all the top of the trees are still good, how did something underneath the canopy get broke off like that? Especially if it's not, there's no obvious damage to the tree itself. It's not ate up by bugs, you know. It's a fresh looking tree. So how did it break? Well, that one there, I can pretty much tell you. They snapped that one. Now there wasn't no footprints, because people would argue, well, kids will climb up that tree and they'll lean it over and break it. Yeah, I'll buy that. But if they did that on this one, there had been all kind of footprints, there had been all kind of stuff around it. You'd still been able to see their prints and everything around that tree, amongst where it was down at. You would have seen it. There wasn't anything. There was nothing around that tree. So I almost guarantee what actually broke that tree, because it's in a very hot spot, very active area. The tree bends, same thing. Now a lot of these trees you'll see them bent down like this, and then they may be tied down with a vine. Or there could be another tree laying over the top of it, again, that looks like it's been carried in, not just something that fell over. A lot of times, you know, someone will see and they'll go, that's a tree bend. Yeah, you walk over there and go, yeah, that's because that tree right there broke and kind of took that tree out as it went and bent it down. You know, you can kind of go and see that. If you really stop and you go look at some of this stuff, you can kind of deduct, did this naturally happen? So that's what I'm looking at. On this one here, I forget, but I've got a picture of it, so there was probably a reason I took the picture,
We
because
couldn't figure out what was holding it down.
Yeah.
What caused it to fall.
What caused it?
Caused the bend.
what
We
caused
couldn't
that.
figure it out.
So that's some of the things that we look for. And when I first started doing it, Steve Abney had told me about this stuff, and I'm going, yeah, and shaking my head, the same as what most people do. So we started looking for it, and then we realized, how come we find this stuff in certain areas but not everywhere? Because we'll find these tree breaks, and you may go on one ridge where there's a number of tree bends. There may be several tree bends, there may be several tree breaks. You go over on the next ridge and there's nothing. Or you go into this forest and anything that you find, you go, yeah, that just naturally happened. That's nothing unusual. That don't look very, very weird. But the areas that we was finding that in was all active areas. Areas that we realized, hey, this is supposedly a really active area. There's reports coming from right here. You know. So that's when we started going, yeah, there's something to these. There's something to this. And then the more people that you actually talk to, once you get into the Bigfoot community and you really start talking to a lot of people, because what you see on the internet and what you read on the internet is nothing compared to what, when you get in with the groups that actually go out and do this all the time, and you start listening to different podcasts and things like that, of what really goes on. It's like the reports when someone says, well, there isn't that many reports in Indiana. Yeah, that's because they never really get reported. They don't. That's just, the reports are a fraction of what's really going on. That's just a fraction of what's really going on. So, what you see on like Finding Bigfoot, when that show come out, which it done a lot, it opened eyes to a lot of different people, brought the subject up, so it done a lot of good. But they never really found anything. They never got really any evidence, you know. They really had nothing. They might have got a response, what we call an action for a reaction. If you go out and you do a tree knock, which kids love to do, you know, and people love to do it. They want to go out there and they want to do a tree knock. They want to hear that tree knock back. Well, I'll tell you what, the first time you go out there and you do a tree knock and you get a response back and you're pretty sure there's no one in that area, it's pretty neat. You go, damn, what just did that? Where'd that come from? So it's pretty cool. But after a while, it gets kind of boring. Because you're going, yeah, I know they're here. Then we may get a tree knock back. That's awesome. I heard a tree knock. That's pretty cool. You know, and it is when you first start out. But after you do it for a while, you want more. You want more than just that. So that's when you start building. If you go out there and you do a tree knock and you go, hey, I know they're in this area now. I know that they're down in this area. That's time to go in there and start spending more time there. That's when, if there's a campground there, start camping there all the time. Go there and camp. Step out in the wood line and talk to them. Say, hey, I know you're here. Come and see us. Just come by and see us tonight. Now, you may think you're silly, and you may be laughing, but they're gonna hear you. And if they're there, and once they know that you're aware of them, they will. They will come in.
And you have good intentions.
And you have good intentions. Now, I'll be honest with you, you wanna go out there and you're gonna go, I'm gonna get one of these on my wall, and you got a gun on your side, and they ain't coming around. They ain't coming around. But you go out there with good intentions, that you have no intentions of harming them. You just wanna know that they're here. You just wanna hear them. They'll come around. They'll come around, because they know your intentions when you get out of your car. Believe that or not, but that is the truth. These are highly intelligent creatures that can do a lot more than what we even think. They know what your intentions are when you get out, and they understand what you're saying. Now, people will argue, how can they speak? Well, I don't know how they do it. Because they sit around and listen to us, and we're their entertainment half the time in the campgrounds, because that's what it is. Most of the campgrounds in Indiana, the parks, all of that, they're in them. They're in them. They're probably sitting back just off of the campground itself, and they watch us. They watch. We're their entertainment. And a lot of times the juveniles come in and they mess with people and try to scare them. That's when people say, oh, I got the shit scared out of me. Yeah, it's a juvenile having some fun. So I was telling someone a while ago, we've got a campsite that we have been in for several years now. We camp there a lot. The juveniles there like to mess with people. They really do. Last year, 3 times they ran people out.
Something like that.
Something like, I think it was like 3 different times that actually witnessed them being around the campsite, knew they was around the campsite, knew they was walking around the campsite.
Leaving at midnight.
And then around, you know, this is around midnight, the other campers are in their tent and asleep, and then they get out and you see them shining their flashlight around. They get back in their tent and get settled down, then they're back out there and they're shining that light around again because something's walking around their campsite. These guys are sitting on their campsite watching it going on. About the 3rd time or so, they're ripping their shit down and leaving. Yeah, we ran someone else off. And they're laughing. They're just having fun. We're their entertainment. But they do that, and they do that in different campgrounds. But what we do is we go out and try to create a trusted relationship with them. By that, what I'm saying is, when we're there, we're not gonna have a flashlight on us. We're not gonna have nothing on us. They know if they come into us and they come around that campsite and they come right up just outside that firelight, we're not gonna turn a light on them. We're not gonna hit them with a light. We're not gonna be flashing a camera at them. We're not gonna be doing anything like that. We're just gonna enjoy them being there. Gonna step out there just like what Martin does most of the time. He'll step out there and he'll go, thank you, that was so awesome. Can you show me your eyes again? Can you break that tree? Can you snap that limb? And it happens. He'll say, I got someone that just wanting to hear a tree break. And the tree gets broken. Maybe a few minutes, but then the tree gets broken. How often can you go out there and sit in the woods and say, man, I'd love to hear a tree break tonight. I'd love to hear a tree actually pushed over and one goes down. And have it on recording.
More than
Pretty
once.
awesome.
More than once.
More than once. More than once. It's because they understand what you're saying.
You also figured out through someone getting growled at about shining lights too.
Yeah.
Like you don't just not shine them. You've had experiences that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just that saying that. It's like we was at a campground just north of Louisville. And all of us was sitting around the fire, and one of the guys that camps with us he's over on the side. Well, he was doing some gifting. He had some stuff set back by his camper and was gifting. And he'd walk back over to his camper, and then all at once we hear one scream. It's right there. And we're all like, well, wow, man, that was right there. And directly Bob comes back and he goes, oh, that was bad. So what happened, he goes, I went back there to check my gifting stuff. He goes, I turned the light on and I hit one with a light. Man, he wasn't happy. Yeah, we hurt him. So.
And he apologized.
And he apologized to it.
Yeah.
Now, what is wild, and you get into this and you'll go shake your head, but the next night we're actually working with a group that is treating them just like paranormal. They believe that they can speak with the Sasquatch through a voice box, just like what they do with ghosts. And that's what they believe, and that's what they was trying to show. And it was the most intriguing night I've ever had in my life. It left me dumbfounded, totally dumbfounded. Because through that box, this was on Friday night when that happened, or was it?
It was
Friday night, Saturday night.
Friday, and then Saturday nights when, yes, Friday night, and then Saturday nights when.
Yeah, Friday night. That happened. That happened on Friday night. And then this is Saturday night that we're actually talking through them with them through the box. And they said, and it comes right out through this voice box, through this app on a phone. It comes right out and says, and the people that was doing this come in at 1 o'clock in the morning and never met none of us, never seen none of us. And it says, and we asked, why did you scream? Light. It's exactly what it said. Why did you scream at Bob? The light. It's exactly what it said. Because he had flipped the light on. And there's a whole thing about that one.
With a lot of witnesses too.
There was a lot of witnesses there, and a lot of strange stuff happened that night.
I've had like 6 or 8 people or something all
Named-
talk about it.
Named everybody's name.
Yeah, this thing went, I mean, using that box, it went around and named everybody that was standing in a circle. And they couldn't have been manipulating the box because these people had never seen any of us before in their life.
Other than the guy that we.
Yeah, other than the one guy that they was working with. You know, and it went around and named every one of us. And then the one that was really wild is when they called this guy Dad. And we're like going, Dad, his name's Jerry. And his wife goes, only to you guys, everybody else calls him Dad. Well, that's something that none of us knew, you know. We didn't realize that.
I mean, she called him Dad, but I didn't think
Yeah,
about
she
it.
called him Dad, but we didn't think nothing about it. But when you're talking about habituation site, and I was showing earlier, because Martin brought some of his stuff. He habituates a site. He's got a site right now that he's doing habituation on and been doing it for about 2 years now. This site was done, it has been habituated now off and on for 10 years. Was done by another lady that moved down Fort Branch. She moved down by Fort Branch. She's no longer up by where we're at. She's down here in Fort Branch. So there was a few years that nothing was actually done at that site. And then Martin come in and ended up habituating that site, talking to her, and started habituating that site again. And what I mean by that, he sets things out. Treats, pies from Walmart. These things absolutely love them.
And I heard probably about a year, maybe a year longer, people say, don't feed them.
Yeah,
so
don't feed them.
I've heard because a lot of people
It's too late, he already feeds them. Now,
say that.
if you look at these,
Well, you don't wanna feed them near your home.
if you look at these, you can tell, those aren't chewed open by a critter. Now, those are from last night. This was put out, he collected these back. We're sitting at the campsite, and we hear one scream, and we're like, man, that sounded like that was right back there where you got your disco ball at. So we went back there, me and her walked back in the woods, and walked back there, and sure enough, one of the bananas was gone off of it. The bundle was still sitting there, just one banana was busted off of it. So, again, what can take one banana off a bundle and then knock that off of that stump, because they was just barely sitting on top of that stump. Kind of wild. Everything. You can take and put a dozen donuts out there. They'll slice that package open, they'll open that package up, and they might take 2 or 3 donuts out of it. The rest of them will be sitting there.
And the package will be there.
The package will still be there.
Critters with it.
Yeah. Edie would always she'd put animal crackers out for them all the time. They would take that bag of animal crackers, which she always wrote the IBRO on it and put the date on it. That's why she knew what it was. Now, she had that inside of a Tupperware container with the lid on top of it, with the brick on top of that. And it would be gone. The stuff would be gone out of it. The container's there, the lid's there, the brick's on it, and the stuff's gone. Now, this is hid in the woods, so it isn't where someone just happened to walk by and seen it. It'd have to be down in the brush to find it. Kind of unlikely. I'm not saying that couldn't happen. But those animal crackers would disappear, and they might be gone for a couple weeks, and then that bag would reappear empty back in her container. It's because they was out and they wanted more. Pretty wild. That's some wild stuff. So if you want to hear more, especially this year, September 27th and 28th in Nashville, Indiana, if you happen to know where that's at, that's in Brown County. We're going to have the first Indiana Bigfoot Conference. We're bringing in Charlie Raymond from Kentucky, Mark Dwert from Ohio, which runs the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, which is the biggest Bigfoot conference in central U.S. Amy Boo is out of Ohio, I believe. Adam Davies is
Tennessee, but he goes all over the country.
Tennessee, but he goes all over the world doing research on more than just
He goes to,
Bigfoot.
like Mongolia and all those places.
Yeah, and then we've got Greg
Yost.
Yost out of Southern Indiana, and also Pac-Man Paranormal, which is paranormal, and they do Bigfoot, and they're the ones that we got with that one night and was talking to on the voice box. They're the ones that come in. They're gonna speak. It's gonna be interesting. It's a wide range of people, from nothing but from flesh and blood to more spiritual and more energy gets into the woo stuff real big. So you're gonna hear a wide range. So if you're interested, go to the IndianaBigfootConference.com and get tickets and come up there and see some people from across the US and hear what they have to say.